Well, the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited, (NNPCL), has denied reports that it intends to raise pump prices for premium motor spirit, also known as petrol. In a statement from the company's management shared via X, formerly known as Twitter, on Friday, the oil giant said the rumors making the rounds was unfounded. Now, I quote, "Dear esteemed customers, we at NNPC Retail value your patronage, and we do not have the intention to increase our PMS pump prices as widely speculated." End quote. Well, now, let's get right into this conversation at once. Joining me in the studio here to make sense of it all is Akin Fatunke, a communication consultant and also an accountant, chartered accountant, actually. All right, and he's also a public affairs commentator. All right, so I do have John Akirile joining me virtually as well. Well, when he comes in, he will join the conversation. Well, I must say, welcome to the studio.
Thank you very much, Moses. Always a pleasure, always very refreshing to be with you and to learn my quota, to seeking for the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth as we plod on in our Nigerianness as a nation. Thank you so much.
All right, so now we're talking about fuel, the pump price hike. Right now, as it is, it's high enough. All right, with the removal of subsidy, Nigerians are groaning, and now there are rumors again that the price of fuel might just go up. But NNPCL is saying no, that's not true. But in times past, when we hear rumors like this, even when they are debunked, we know what happens. After a while, it comes out to be true. But what do you make of this one?
Yes, Moses, as a veteran in the past 30 years of a working career in oil and gas, the downstream, as also a veteran who has always been at the middle of the ups and downs when it comes to issue of subsidy or no subsidy, labor or no labor, NMPC, liaison, then DPR, and now midstream regulatory agency, contaminated fuel, or no contaminated fuel. I decided to put all this to put a balance to my honest thoughts about this. And that is to say, Moses, there can be no smoke
Without fire.
There can be no fire without a match. There can be no match if there's not a hunger or demand for something that is scarce. And because it is scarce, naturally, you may not be able to get it cheap. And so, with all that background, and with all the strength, honesty that lies within me, I am afraid to say, first to myself, no matter if others don't believe, to say we are in not just for a rough ride, we are in for another season of lying, inexactitude, lying for the sake of politics, and lying because we want to run away from the reality. What is the reality?
Please tell me. I was going to ask that.
The reality is that Nigeria, in that area of endeavor, like many other areas of endeavor, if you look at SDG goals, 17 of them, the economy has been in shambles, has not been properly managed. We've been bleeding and bleeding and bleeding, And because we have been bleeding and bleeding and bleeding, we decided to do a jump start from May 29, when Mr. President, uh, in his wisdom, said to us that subsidy is gone. Uh, we have something that we call a PIA, and that PIA had been shifting over time for implementation, and that PIA was to end by end of June. So whether subsidies gone as at May 29, or we all wumble and fumble until June 30 of 2023, we were in their streets. We had eaten what we could not replicate, and so it went on and on and on, and something has to come into being. Moses, I'm awfully sorry, my personal opinion, based on my experience, I do not believe the NNPC. I do not believe the NNPC because NNPC has to come to the table. And if they are listening to me, yes, I can get a bloody nose, but it doesn't take away the fact that how many days cover do they have from the last imports that they made? Don't forget, essentially, they were the sole importer. They were the sole importer because it became not viable for marketers, whether MoMA, Major Marketers Association, or the independent marketers, to continue to bring in fuel. And so the subsidy that we have been paying has gone into trillions upon trillions upon trillions over time, kept on mounting, for which we had to borrow, for which we cannot even conveniently repay the interest and principal, but basically even the interest on that loan. So what has happened? NNPC kept on importing. NNPC kept on stacking their books by the remittance that they need to put into the federation account, using it for subsidy, to subsidize. So they take that junk out of there. Who audits it? Who looks at it? We had not seen an audited account of NNPC until about 1.5 years ago, and even then, it's now being disputed here and there. So there were a lot of shenanigans that went on. Things were getting wasted, were being smuggled, were not getting value for money, and so they decided they were going to continue to import, but they could not have imported forever. And the little imports back in their tanks, and they are put in few storage tanks, have been dwindling over time. I suspect that part of what has happened is that under the table or whatever it is, to keep us a bit wet, they still keep on importing, especially when all marketers try to do a bit of a foray, and they saw some red flags. They were not getting dollar at reduced prices and all that kind of stuff. So how many days stock do they have? If you had 30 days, 60 days, even if you have 180 days stock, about 3 months ago, do the math.
It will have depleted by now.
It will be dwindling. And don't forget, Platts, what you call the dollar per barrel, has been going up. So you don't need to be an economist or an accountant to know that we are in dire straits. And the earlier
now, I know you have alluded to this already, but I would like clearly stated terms. Sometime in previous weeks, we heard that government is back to paying subsidy quietly, without without informing the people officially, but then it was in the papers that there is the likelihood. But then the price of fuel stayed the same. It stayed at 600 in some places, almost 700 in others. And now we are hearing that there is a possibility of an increase in pump price, and we know, as we have clearly stated, that there is no smoke without fire. What do you say to the fact that the government that said subsidy was gone, has been allegedly or has allegedly brought it back through the back door from under the table?
Again, Moses, what we see playing out here today is being played out nearly every other time, not just with this regime, so many other regimes. And what is the political will?
Is it the political will or the reality? Because the dollar
will
against the naira kept going up. Is something that would have made it troubling for the government to retain a certain price of fuel. Don't you think so?
It's a political will. If you cannot, and you know as the head of a family that you cannot afford 3 square meals, and you have come back to say, well, I'm sorry, I will not be able to afford 3 square meals and stuff like that, and for the whole family to see you stand by that character-wise, relative-wise, what you are now trying to make as realistic, just realistic. And no matter how you look at it, the elements went at the seams. Dollar kept on rising. Our refinery capacity is minus, if not zero. Things that are supposed to cushion here and there, we had, out of corruption, throw them out. Attempts were made to stem some of these things in the tide. They did not work because we had middlemen, middle women, quarter men, quarter women, quarter children, quarter aged that played in that space to make it impossible. So what do I make? What can I make of it is the fact that, and don't forget, we had a big elephant in the room. What I would like to agree with you when you use the word reality, and because Labour has said, hey, wait a minute, for you to even contemplate removing subsidy on fuel, there are certain preconditions that needs to be
met.
Don't let me also say, or maybe I should say it, I should have the political will to say it. Labour was part and parcel of the movement towards PIA. Labour knew that subsidy was going to be removed. Albeit, they kept on saying, well, we applaud it and stuff like that, but our local refining capacity needs to go up. Labour is also aware, because this is a trench I have been there with, and they have labour unions everywhere, also knew that the monumental corruption that was going, that has put our refineries out of place, virtually out of function. So we were all part of chicken and egg over time, which Mr. President decided. He has always been an oilman himself. He spent the better part of his career in the oil and gas industry. Now said, I'm not going to close my eyes. We need to find a way to stop the bleeding, albeit forgetting that quite a number of things will happen. So if you now add the Labour saying that, okay, look, for now, you can't continue to increase price. If you increase it again without, and then, we start talking about palliatives, we start talking about interventions, we start talking about so many other things and stuff like that. Moses, what does that tell you? You don't need to be an economist or to be a finance person. You only need to have the reality and the political will to just know that this is not sustainable. So what is going to happen? What will now then happen is what has happened in times past.
What is that, please?
The wumbling and fumbling, we are not We're not going to increase price. We are not going to do this and stuff like that. It will keep on going. Scarcity will entail. People will be impoverished. Eventually, people will now come out and say, look, I can't get this fuel, even if I have to get it at whatever this price and stuff like that. Also, realizing the fact, if you look at it from the Pareto analysis, very few will still be able to afford. The vast majority will still not be able to afford. So, bottom line, Moses, we are in dire straits, we are in quagmire, and the earlier we begin to come to terms, don't forget also, Nnpc climbing on the back of Dangote. Remember, about 1 or 2 years ago, oh, when Dangote comes, yeah, it's not necessarily going to reduce price, but we are going to have logistics takeoff of costs and import takeoff of costs. Worst case scenario, instead of a liter of fuel, say for instance, selling at 800 naira, we sold at 500 naira. But if the Platts, that is the crude price, keeps on increasing, it means even Dangote will not be able to to get to that part. And then what did we wake up to find? The startup dates keeps on being shifted. Nnpc decides to put their hand into it. Rumor, I like it. I like it, Moses, when you use the right word in communication here. Rumor also has it that Nnpc that has promised crude to
Dangote refinery.
It's not there. And why is it not there? Because we have decided, Nnpc, again, to let you know that we are in deeper shit. Sorry, we are in deeper pit on this matter. That Nnpc has swapped our crude to take loan. To take loan to do what? To continue to subsidize consumption and what have you. We are not in a very straight, essentially focused and managed process that is taking us to the Golgotha. Is it retrievable? Yes. What can retrieve it? Truth.
Truth.
Yes.
Now, before we
it has a twin. It has a twin. And apart from truth, the twin to the truth is leading by example. Let everybody know that we are in this quagmire, and it's not that some people will be getting this fuel free or whatever it is. If they are going through the pains, I tell you, solution come out.
Okay, I'm going to ask you a question, but before I throw this particular question, let me just ask. In response to a few things you just said, how are we even importing crude oil now, as it is?
That we are importing crude oil?
Yes. Why?
Are you making a statement of fact, or you are also rumor?
Rumor has it. Okay.
Okay.
Now, let me ask this.
Look at that statement. Again comes. I'm happy you are asking me that. I'm not in the oil and gas, but like I said, there's no smoke without fire. So which means when you say importing fuel, we had rumor that Dangote is importing fuel because we don't have enough to give to him, because the ones that we are producing, we have swapped it. We are not even producing enough. Quite substantial amount of it is being stolen. Okay, it's been tied, in the north. Moses, we need to do what we have done in CBN, in Nnpc.
Investigate?
We need to not just investigate, I guess, another shaking of the table, depending on how you look at it. We need to change the guards. We need to investigate forensically.
That's another question.
So many people that are at fault must be brought to
One would wonder, when this administration came into office, and then there were sacking of heads of government parastatals and the rest of them, CBN taking off, the governor of CBN, asked to step aside. But then The man presiding over NNPC, nothing was said or done to him. One would wonder why exactly has his services been up to par enough that we want him to remain there since there's a new administration in power.
Moses, fear is fair. And Shakespeare talked about fear can be foul and foul can be fair. While I will not be able to say precisely why, but I can use emotional intelligence to tell you that you pick on your foes guardedly.
That's
pick
loaded.
on your foes guardedly. Mr. President came in and went to the top of the roof and said subsidy is gone. One fallout of it is that not being prepared for the fallouts, including factors that are beyond the capacity of economics and the economists to fathom. And the fact that we are not only is it that we are not producing, we are not earning revenue, a lot of
So in
what
essence,
is
are
going
you
in there.
alluding to the fact that if the management of NNPC is changed,
I am aware.
It will throw the nation into
I am aware.
into chaos?
I am aware. What Mr. President said, what I thought I had Mr. President said, he talked about the CBN and other agencies of government.
Yes.
So you cannot, if I was managing, I cannot take it on all. And I must go step by step. What you must realize, I must realize, and our viewers must understand, is that the CBN factor is like the River Niger, River Benue, that goes into confluence at Lokoja and in the Delta area. If you begin to pick it from that angle, there is absolutely no way you will not be able to trace some of the tributaries into CBN. It comes to question. And what have you? So that's number one. Then number two, obviously, Moses. You are asking for that entity to be probed. I have no problems about you probing. But Mr. President, I'm making a statement here that I know I have to weigh carefully. Mr. President knows that a lot of people who have been involved in the despoiling, in the probe thing that you are talking about, are part and parcel of government. Not just this government, previous
They've always
government.
been there.
I'm talking about, okay, I can take my cue from 1999 or 1998 when Rilwan Lukman came publicly and was talking about we going on the regulation. And then all parties, when I say all parties, including you, Moses, because we were born then, I was born then, we knew that we were eating a cake that was not out of reality. And we can all then claim and do an alibi. Yeah, I mean, that is what, why is my refinery is not working and all that? You can continue to say that. While that was going, Nigeria was bleeding and what have you. If you are asking for a policeman, I have great respect for our police. So I'm only trying to make an allegory here. If you are asking a policeman from whose belly the armed robbers, the kidnappers, whatever it is, they are all surrounding him, and say, go and investigate and stuff like that. Is there a possibility that he's going to investigate himself? Or you look at it, I have been part and parcel of so many probes. The National Assembly, many of the National Assembly present, and many of the National Assembly who have passed, will bear me out on this. We go on probe upon probe upon probe upon probe. You get to a particular angle, you just find that, hey, wait a minute, what are we really talking about? So ask yourself, Why can't we have an independent Minister of Petroleum since
That's a
the time
question
of
on the table.
OPJ? So you have to find a way to try and continue to cover the
So this
the
just
labor,
speaks to corruption.
yes, the labor unions know, they know very well, and part of it is the fact that even the labor unions, and I'm making a statement here, even the labor unions know that they were aiders and abettors in quite a number of areas in the past. If we now have a dawn that all of us want to now then say that, look, let's look at it very critically. Osifo just came out and was talking about the fact that cost of governance needs to be reduced. He knows what he's saying. He's talking economics. And if cost of governance is going to have to be reduced, quite a number of so many ratchet effects, ratchet factors, as economists call it, will have to give way so that we can be a bit much more opaque. But I can tell you for free, based on what I think I know and the direction that Nigeria is going, there is no way this probe that we are talking about will not land on the laps of Nnpcl, to call it now, MPA, just mentioned.
Okay.
Transport, education, tech fund, medical.
Okay, now there's this headline I want to take from one of the papers that we shared this morning.
Okay.
I want your thoughts on it as it concerns this issue of possible increase in fuel price, and also the fact that the war in Ukraine and Russia, Nigeria did not, chime in, did not latch onto it to make money. Now, today's papers, The Guardian actually has this headline: War in the Middle East may spiral, push monthly petrol subsidy to 644.8 billion naira.
Any war, let's go back to history. And it's one of the reasons why I say we must have history.
Every war affects.
History must come back. You remember?
But we are an oil-producing nation.
You remember the Iran oil windfall during the Babangida era, the Gulf War, and where Nigeria was supposed to be sitting pretty and was sitting pretty at that time, we are at the front. It had the imprimatur of the CBN at that time conniving with a couple of people, and the 12 billion went down the drain. It's not happening for the first or second time. Now, the Russian-Ukraine war, we missed out because we didn't do our homework. We were not poised for it. We kept on eating with both sides of the fingers to our mouth and stuffing when we should be planning for the rainy day. We decided not to do that. And the good book talked about the fact that, hey, wait a minute, a time is going to come. Remember the parable of the 7 wise women and a foolish woman? We didn't put enough oil in our lantern. We all knew it, we saw it, basically because we were not running a nation. We were running a state that was lying to itself by jackboot, not having elections that will count, not training our children, not doing what we need to do. So this latest one that is coming, it's obvious. Are we ready? Are we even talking about developmental strides and assignment? However, I like to say that the present government of Bola Ahmed Tinubu, in its hope agenda, if it eventually comes to fruition, it's already looking at how we now then go back and do the backward linkage and begin to now harness, not just in the oil and gas industry, but divert attention away from there, going to marine economy, going to digital economy, because those are some of the things that we really need. But if you are going to have a baby, Moses, you have to find a way to get the embryo fertilized, haven't fertilized it, stay either in the womb or outside the womb for some 9 months. In those 9 months, you're not going to see a dime. But after 9 months, all things being equal, the medical is well, the nutrition is there, everything goes
Okay,
on.
so
You now will now have what they call a baby. That is the pain. Is Nigeria prepared to go through that pain? That is the big question. And in wanting to go through that pain, the doctor must be trained. The
okay, so
housewife must
is
be.
Nigeria prepared to
Are
suffer,
we really prepared
to
to?
go through this suffering,
Are we
and
a
not being
nation?
able to afford anything?
Are we one? Are we
Should we be
moving towards the same direction?
should we
The
be
answer
made
seems no.
should Nigerians be made to go through this? Shouldn't there be a cushioning effect? If the refineries were built, would we be talking about what we're talking about now?
If
So unfortunately,
and then if it was not rebuilt, if we've not done the things we need to do, Moses, I saw you swallowing your cake. I saw you swallowing your cake. You said it's your cake, you swallowed it. And now you are now crying to me now that you are hungry. And I asked you, but you swallowed your cake. Said, because I was hungry, it's my own now and all that. What do you think should be my response to you? Of course, I will sympathize with you. I say, look, you better just, you are not going to have 6 or 8 hours of sleep. Cut down your sleep. Do a couple of things. Train yourself a bit more. Find some other avenues. Cut your coat according to your clock. Make sure that at the end of the day, the common factor in Nigeria, pray. But don't just pray, make sure you work. That is the most unfortunate thing. Now, you are talking about, now for instance, you are talking about this impending war, Hamas and Iran, and what have you. We are
Hamas
not even,
and Israel.
and we are not, according to our OPEC quota, we are not even producing enough. The little we are producing, we still have issues surrounding security, people who should know that are still steering us blind. What then should we really be doing? In my honest opinion, is do everything to take our focus away from oil as a monoproduct, diversify. And again, I must say, it doesn't matter that we now have a government that is thinking towards that direction. If that government is sustained, or if that government is not sustained because the Supreme Court thinks otherwise, whichever government comes into the saddle, know that they have their job cut off for them. Starting in ensuring that we will continue to wumble a bit, continue to fumble a bit. I like the aspect of your question which goes to the heart of the matter, that should we continue to suffer? That is why leadership. So needs to be a bit much more compassionate, cut a bit from the rich, which the taxation seems to be looking at now. We need to see more effectively, and not leave everything to the market forces. See? Make sure we find a way to think. And the reason why Labour, or so many other people, Pengerson, is already saying that subsidy is coming back through the back door. But be careful. Be careful in the sense that I think the Bible is what will say, let they who stand beware, lest they fall. Because what may happen is that government might say, okay, look, I still want to make sure I do the right for the economy. And if you prevent me from doing that right to the economy, we might find supply-demand shortage. Who suffer at the end of the day? Still going to be the common masses. Unless we have a leader who has a conscience to now then say, look, I'm going to stand by some of the things I'm going to do, but I will take away from the little body fat that I have, the little body fat for people that surround me, look at a lot of the things that I think I am conveniently doing that should not be done. Example would be the fact that I'm president, I'm governor, I'm a legislator. I should not be earning pension, still retaining pension. I should not be eating 3 square meals a day when others are not eating at all. I mean, things like that. For us to be able to leave a legacy, for us to be able to now then say, hey, wait a minute, can we find a way to be plugging some of these loopholes out of children, school in IDP. I like what the humanitarian minister is beginning to do, to now then say, look, for me to manage whatever it is in the area of poverty, I must be able to measure them openly, transparently. By the time we begin to do that, I have seen situations where a family, that's where I started from, says we cannot afford 3 square meals. They saw the father and they saw the mother not even going with food at all. You know what those children did? Oh my God, my parents are now doing this. I have to follow suit. And by the time we begin to do things like that, so but when you don't see the father who says you can't have 3 square meals and is flying everywhere, is on private jets, the wife is doing this,
all right,
the kids are doing something
as it
different.
stands, Nigerians
It's a
will
recipe
have
for
to,
confusion.
Nigerians will have to, hold on a bit and wait for the government. But then,
Nigeria will have to hold on a bit.
If
continue to put the feet of government to fire.
If
make
is
sure
increased,
that look,
what do you
whatever
think
it
will
is
happen?
going to.
If this rumored increase comes to light, what do you think will happen in your analytical experience? What do you think will be the fallout of this, especially as it affects the common man? Can we have that in 60 seconds?
Yes, I'll take 30 seconds to say that the answer to that is truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, knowing fully well where we are bleeding, where we have bled, and making sure we put people who have put us into this quagmire, even if it's Mr. President himself. You hear me? Look, time for recompense. Come and put to bear what we need to do. Play bargaining. We know you. We know a lot of the things that you have done with NNDC. We know how you have borrowed money to say you are going to bring fuel and you brought nothing and stuff like that. The public begins to now then see that is going on well and properly. If you don't do that, we stand the risk of the countryside erupting in riots. We stand the risk of labor now saying you've not done all the things I think I asked you to do and you've not been able to get it out. We're all going to go. It may spell the death knell to our corporate existence. The poor will need to eat. And you know what they are going to eat? The rich. We are going to get into a situation where life will now become nasty, brutish, and short, like Hope's mentioned.
But we pray it doesn't get to that. We pray and hope
it
doesn't get to that.
Pray, I hope, but before those two, that we need to face the truth. We need to come to reconcile the fact that we have done it very badly, begin to lead by example, lead to have character, to have competence, to have capacity, and to have compassion. It's not going to be government and government alone. Government can be swallowed. What about you? What about me? What am I actually doing if I am a man of relative means to help people around me, including when I see children out of school? What is really happening? I can't afford school fees and stuff like that. Can we do some local lessons and stuff like that?
Okay.
Bring development.
Unfortunately,
to the grassroots.
we have to wrap this segment up now and go to our next talking point for today. Well, up next on VOP
build
this
shops,
morning.
Well, build all sort of things that does not fit, into, and that's why we have this problem, and we cannot let a few people, risk the life of the larger number of us. So those are some of the things that you begin to see, in the days and weeks and months ahead in our attempt to be able to completely regenerate, that part of Lagos Island. And it's important that we emphasize that it is a commitment and we will do it. We will rebuild it, we'll redo.
Well, big news and a sad one for traders and buyers as Lagos State government sets to demolish 3 popular big markets in Lagos. Well, let's discuss this when we return.